want to speak to that since Healthcare IT Central is my company, and we've got tens of thousands of job seekers who upload their resumes. And I've thought that way too. I thought, well, you know, this is great. We can have it all digitized, and they can just pop it on there, and the recruiters aren't going to want the actual. Well, I was wrong. I had to invest considerable resources to allow the job seekers to upload their resume in a PDF, because those recruiters still desire the ability to print that thing out and put it in a file, and so at least in my experience, it is still, which is kind of ironic since we're, you know, in healthcare IT, but there still is the need for that paper.
And can I speak to that? And I've been in several recruiting companies with several different kinds of recruiting databases. The databases now can automatically gobble up the PDF from the LinkedIn profile, but they also take in the Word document or PDF and populate the database. And we always look at the original resume. And if someone has a PDF or if they have a profile on LinkedIn, I will always ask for a resume still, because LinkedIn is still kind of not everything. So.
Sure, and I didn't mean to discount, but again, I think so many of these companies, it's like you said, it's keywords. It's
keywords, yeah.
Keywords.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it does seem like you have, the companies and even the sites have to invest in a Word or a PDF type of file, so
right.
they can hold the resumes.
Carter, why don't we start with you, since you do video pretty frequently?
You know, I have seen that. It's not as ubiquitous as I think, but it certainly discriminates that person, and we'll remember them. I see a lot more resumes coming over with just a photo, a still photo, and that helps as I'm talking to the person, that, you know, I understand what they look like. So absolutely. I would do it, and you'd stand out if you did that.
Bonnie, I know you do a lot of your interviewing on using like Skype, right?
Or
video Uvu.
Uvu is OOVOO.com is a very professional. It's more professional than Skype, and you can conference in 6 people or more. So it's a very polished looking video conferencing. But I did look at someone's video resume, and it was well done. I mean, it was like an attractive website, and it didn't have necessarily, it was a website. I guess it wasn't really a video. But it's so rare right now in healthcare IT, but it's moving toward there. I mean, you're going to all have to have stage managers and makeup artists. And just beware, though, if you ever have a video when you're in your home office or at home, dining room, or wherever you're having a video interview, be careful what's behind you. Because I talked to a candidate who had an abstract painting behind his head, and it looked like 2 yellow horns were coming out. And I had to caution him. I said, maybe change the painting if you have another video interview. But so I've been coaching people on how to stage themselves inside their homes or home offices, because that's where a lot of interviews are happening.
I think, just addressing the pharmacy piece, I think these pharmacists are seeing the technology come into their setting, and it's just a challenge because every organization is different. Just speaking on the pharmacy piece, I can see the same job description that could work in IT, it could work in informatics, and it can work in the pharmacy. So every organization is still different, it's evolving, but I don't, you know, to some extent people either are going to jump in and decide this is a career or not, and if their current organization is not giving them exposure, their training, they have to get that exposure and lay that foundation somewhere, and that's how I would try to get that point across to some of these people. So the best thing that I see is if they can get involved within their organization, but not everybody can be a part of that. So that's a step that's very important, is just getting that foundation of the technology and what they're dealing with. Sometimes they think they know. They don't know what they don't know, and that's the biggest challenge to get across to them.
I think the most successful project teams that I've worked with on the implementation side have had the right balance of healthcare and technical people, and often it is different people. So some of my projects have 2 project directors. One person comes from IT, and another person was a nurse and has all those connections within an organization and understands what the business does. And if you can come together and offer both of those worlds in one person, I think it's a great mix. That would be a reason for me. You really need both to be successful. You have to understand the basics of technology, but you have to understand how the business works, or it's an IT project that's changing a bunch of people's lives and how they work, and it's not going to be received well.
I was going to answer it. I mean, there's a lot of different questions depending on the role and the position and the candidate. But in terms of answers, you need to be concise. If you talk for 5 minutes to one question that I've asked you, I'm going to tune out after a minute. I mean, so you need to be concise and cite some sort of experience or some sort of project that you might have worked on in your informatics program or something to tie your experience in with just about every question that I'm going to ask you. But being lengthy is not going to serve you well in an interview with me, or if you're ever on an interview with an organization that is looking for someone that can get to the point. Yeah.
Bonnie?
I was just going to mention, if you're in an hour interview, you should only talk about 10 minutes out of that hour. Under 2 minutes an answer, and even less if you can do it, and that means practice.
Sure.
That means understand what you've done and accomplished well ahead of time before you go into an interview. No matter what they ask you, you're prepared. You know what you've done. You know yourself. You know the situations you've been in, the tasks you perform, your accomplishments, and what you've added to an organization. And so those are the things that, like Carter said, it's the conciseness, but and don't talk too much.
Advice to also interview your interviewer as
Sure.
well.
Oh.
To see where, if you landed your position, how the company is moving. So that way, it's not like you seem involved, but this is where you're interviewing them, see if they're a fit for you as well.
Excellent. Yeah. That's so true. You have to find out from them, and people love to talk about themselves, so let them expound and sell you on the organization and the role. And that's a great position to be in an interview.
I agree. I think it's very difficult to nail it down to one question. However, I do always ask if the person has questions of me. And if they don't, it's kind of a turn off at the end,
Sure.
right? You've had a really good conversation. You say, so what questions do you have about me or this job? And they have nothing. It probably tells me they didn't do research, or maybe weren't tracking or paying attention during the conversation. So that's something, especially at the end, to make sure you're ready for.
Yeah, and on the flip side, if you're saying, hey, I was on your website and I wanted to ask you about this piece, or, I heard about your company through this avenue and I had a question, that's going to enhance your standing when I'm talking to you, because you're showing an interest in us, as opposed to, we understand you're interviewing with other organizations, but if you can personalize it a little bit to that company, and this is, kind of interviewing 101, you're going to be in a good position. And I tell you, I don't get that a lot. I'm surprised.
You're also demonstrating that you can do research, and especially coming right from school, you're showing that you can look into something and come up with meaningful questions.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I'll just use it as a catchphrase, but ask your question with the power of knowledge as opposed to just not knowing, what the answer is going to be. To demonstrate that you've researched it, kind of have a sense of what the answer is going to be already, and you'll be in a much better position to gauge what the response is.
Just curious.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that. I'm basing this on my experience from being an adjunct in the online program for a few years. And And I'd say that the people who are going to walk out of the program in the best shape are the ones who are already in the industry and are just trying to transition from one healthcare position to another, especially nurses. You don't realize what a strong position you're in for moving into healthcare, because if anyone in the hospital or anyone on the outside is a consultant or a vendor wants to know what really goes on in the hospital, where do they go? and you can take that knowledge of the process or the political scenario of how different people understand things and tweak it with your knowledge of IT and really go places with it. And the only other thing I'd want to add, and there's been an emphasis today for very good reasons on the today, and what's really hot today is the electronic medical records and the implementations. Think beyond that. That this market it's going to change within 2 to 3 years, and money's going to be shifted elsewhere. The one big area I personally think is going to show dramatic growth. That again, the program could prepare you for is, I think Bonnie mentioned it before, is data analytics. Once we have all this data captured through electronic health records and other systems, and we're starting to share data through HIEs, what are we going to do with it? What's meaningful use really all about? I mean, meaningful use is about getting more quality, more public health, more interoperability, okay? Putting that data to use and being able to take a look at all that data and make sense out of it is going to be an extremely powerful and marketable tool that I'm convinced is going to be the next wave of Epic implementers. So.
Yeah, I agree. I can add a little bit. As a baby boomer, I think we're value for work ethic and that type of thing, but also knowledge and experience we can bring, and I think that's important. But also the business intelligence, like Mike had said, the optimization of data is just that's gonna be the next wave. I mean, we need the get the systems in, get them going, but then, oh my gosh, all this data. So people who understand that part, that's golden.
Stage 3, meaningful use.
And I would say both from the database perspective of technically bringing the data together, and then from an operational business transformation perspective of what data is going to help us change how we do what we do. So from a variety of perspectives.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think it was wonderful to have all the panelists. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for coming.